Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best of the best to help you scale your business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest is a very special one and one of the first ones covering the Mexican markets in Latam. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome Arturo, the founder and CEO at Sophia. Arturo, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Likewise, and you have an amazing background that you will share, and I really enjoyed the vision and what you are doing with Sophia. I think it's really ambitious and something that definitely the market needs, and it's always great to witness someone who can see the opportunity and understand that the problem is difficult to solve, but it's possible, and to have that level of ambition also inspires other founders to go for tougher problems to solve as early as possible, right? But yeah, for the ones who are already curious listening to the podcast, so what is Mike talking about? So who is Arturo? And let us know more about how Sophia gets into your life.
Yes, so a bit about myself and my co-founders. Our three stories come together in an interesting way. So I studied applied mathematics here in Mexico together with my two co-founders. That's where I met them. And after that, the three of us, we had like very unplanned but parallel and similar careers. The three of us worked for some time in Mexico doing some form of consultancy. Myself, I worked on data analysis and kind of data science consultancy right out of college. And then I moved to the UK to pursue a master's degree at UCL. I did a program called Computational Statistics and Machine Learning, which it has a very...
That's interesting.
It sounds very fancy. It was a great program. Like, I didn't know it at the time, but I studied with some people that years later, or a couple of years later, went on to do really important breakthroughs. I started with the guy that led the AlphaGo project at DeepMind. That was my professor for the reinforcement learning course. So that was very cool. And I did my program there. Then I stayed in the UK working after the master's. I worked first at a startup, Songkick, a music focused startup. I did only an internship. Then I moved to YouGov, the public opinion company, and worked on this product that aimed to bring together all the disparate survey data that they held and make like profiles of the people answering the questions. This product actually has been, if you look at the YouGov stock price chart, it's quite impressive. It's usually not thought of as a tech company, but now it's well over $1 billion. It's valued at well over $1 billion, and it's a great company. And it's been driven like on that product. I didn't create that product, but I work on the team that created that product, so it was interesting. And then I moved to my role at Index Ventures, which I held for 3.5 years, and that was really when I kind of got super immersed in technology and the technology ecosystem and the startup ecosystem. That was an amazing role because I got to interact with a lot of founders. I think one of the main things that I took from that experience was to see how, when you don't get direct exposure to founders and CEOs and the like, it's easy to think that they're like these superhumans that somehow do these amazing things, and or that they must be like super rare in some sense, but talking to them, of course, like it's a intelligent crowd of people, but they're just people. Like, the thing I took from that is like, everyone like can pursue this. It doesn't require like to have some superpower to create something that can really transform the world. And it's what it is required is a lot of hard work and a lot of energy and a lot of persistence. But really, like, it made the prospect of becoming an entrepreneur myself much more tangible. And after those years at Index, I got the itch of or the curiosity to become an entrepreneur myself. A lot driven by this, what I just mentioned. And I talked to my two co-founders, which during this part of the history, they themselves went to the US to do well, like, again, we didn't plan on this being like that, but the three of us did a master's in statistics. They went one to Harvard and the other to Stanford, and then they stayed in the US working in technology, one at Google and the other at Patreon. And we started talking about the possibility of coming back to Mexico and starting a company, because we wanted to come back to Mexico, but we probably wouldn't want to join a just traditional old established company. We really enjoyed a lot of that culture and a lot of that ethos of technology and how it is to work in technology. And that wasn't really available in Mexico back when we were talking about this. So we realized, we should create a company and bring a lot of that back. And the problem space that we identified that was really interesting was healthcare, because it ticks two fundamental boxes. One is like an important problem. It's a problem that affects us all. We all get ill throughout our lives, and we all need medical care throughout our lives. So it touches everyone, and it touches people in very profound ways. If you improve how a person's experience is throughout a healthcare episode, the difference between like a bad experience and a very good experience is literally life and death. So it's very profound, the impact that you can have. And that's one of the two boxes. The second box is it's a huge market. Like, it represents a huge opportunity. Like, building a company in this space like translates into a very, very large opportunity, which with the investor mindset that I had, that I have, I should say, is one of the key elements for it to be a good investment opportunity. So we decided, okay, we're gonna move back and we're gonna start building Sophia. And from the get-go, we knew that the approach we wanted to follow was to create a new insurance company, because the product of insurance lends itself, or it's a very strong base or strong foundation on top of which you can build the healthcare services. It creates a long-term relationship with users that allows you to treat people not just in one moment in time, but over time, and that creates a very powerful bond with customers. And so we decided, okay, we're gonna create a new insurance company, and that took a long while. It took the whole process from starting to plan that to being able to issue the first policy. It took like 2.5 years. Yeah, so that was
lots of hard work and persistence, as you were saying before.
Exactly, like, and that's just to get to the starting line. Exactly. Which is it's a bit like crazy. But we did that. In the process of that, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about the fundraising aspect of this, but in the process of that, we raised our seed round and our Series A. So we during these 2.5 years, we created the product, we created the processes that are behind the service. We grew the team. So we were quite busy, even though like we weren't selling a product yet. And in November 2020, we launched Sophia. So we've been operating in the market for just over 1.5 years. And today we're like in this phase of growing the company and scaling the company. We've had several learnings in the process, and yeah, like when you're been as long as we were in the laboratory, as we used to refer to it, in this pre-launch mode, you form a lot of ideas of how things should or will work when you launch them to the market, and then you realize, well, actually, that it doesn't work quite like that, and you need to adapt and adjust and keep on with the persistence. Yeah, like today, we've figured out a bunch of the more important things, I would say, like around the go-to-market strategy, and now we're more in an execution phase. So just keep on doing the things we know are working and improving on those, so we can keep scaling the company.
Right. And explain a little bit more how the product works, who can subscribe the product. I also observed on your website that you have kind of a B2C approach, but also an employer's or company package where the employer can pay for the health insurance to the employee. But how it works in practice for the ones who are listening.
Yeah, so coming back to the fact that we were focused in healthcare, and insurance is a very good tool. Like our product reflects that, in that it's not just financial protection that you get with Sophia, is care deliveries and care coordination. So when you buy Sophia, yes, you buy an insurance plan, but it includes a lot of tools and services that are more related to how you manage your health on in addition to the financial protection. So to paint a picture, if you have Sophia, you get the mobile app, and if you feel a little bit ill and you're not sure if it might be COVID or not, you can just through the app talk to a physician through a video consult, and then they can prescribe you some medicine, which then again through the app you can arrange to get it delivered to your house, and that medicine will be billed to the credit card that you provided, that it's associated to your insurance, and so like that whole element of care happens through our product, and let's say like you need to get some tests made, again through our app and through our customer support team, you'll be able to arrange and find out where is the lab where I can go to, and if you need to make an appointment, we help you do that. In some cases, you get to, or we can also like read the results directly from the lab and integrate them into your medical history, which is available in the app. So it's really like this healthcare companion, which is at its core has the financial coverage, because all of these services that I mentioned are covered through your insurance. And we offer this for individuals, so a person or their family can choose to buy for themselves, or for employers to offer it as a benefit for their teams. And the products are largely the same. They just vary like a little bit in terms of who chooses which coverages to get. Like in the case of the employer who chooses like the range of coverage and certain options, but the product works largely the same for an individual or for an employee that got it as a benefit in their company.
Right. So it's kind of a remote clinic plus an insurance company, and also with the health tech component in the mix, let's say. Yes. I actually wrote a piece recently titled "If Not an InsurTech, What It Is," and it closes with if you were to describe Sophia in buzzwords of tech, it wouldn't be InsurTech for healthcare. It'd be more like if Kaiser Permanente was created in 2020 and not 1940, and instead of focusing in the US, it's focused in Latin America. So it's this combination of healthcare delivery coordinated by technology, focusing on first Mexico and then the rest of Latin America. Got it. Love it. And is it possible as a customer to also be covered outside the network of doctors of Sophia, or is that possible at all? Or? It is when, particularly around medical emergencies, we cover the treatment to get you safe and stable, and then like once it's safe, we'll help you move to one of our providers. But we want people for them to if something happens, they can just, and there's a clinic right in front. They shouldn't be thinking about, oh, is this covered or not? They should just get healthy, and once they're stable, we will get them to one of our top providers or physicians. Got it. Sounds good. Sounds a great concept, and also a lot of business model innovation here, which is more rare to see, right? Yes. There's a lot of business model innovation, but we also benefit from the fact that insurance is a well understood model. So, there's a lot around service and how we innovate on that later. But at the end of the day, I see you have the Warren Buffett behind you on the shelf, and he's taught the whole world a lot about how to think about insurance and what makes a good insurance business, and those all lessons also apply to us, and that's a great benefit. Love it. And we agreed to go through a little bit more of a macro perspective, understanding a little bit more what are the opportunities in LATAM and specific in Mexico before going deeper into the company. But of course, we have changed the conversation and we went directly into the company, and that's how it should be. This is a conversation, but just giving a step back. How do you see, and why? Of course, you wanted to come back to Mexico, but apart from there, you also have been an investor during 3 years and a half, and you keep feeding also your investor hat and your investor muscle as you keep feeding also or training your founder hat. And I think that's really important. That's one of the difficult parts of being a founder, is we need to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of the investors, in the shoes of the customer, in the shoes of the talent. So understanding all the stakeholders and making something that serves all of them and solves a big problem, right? So that's why sometimes we need to be all over to be able to combine all the interests of all the stakeholders that we want to serve in a company. But how did you find this huge opportunity, and why do you think that, or do you think that in Mexico you had a higher opportunity compared to the US, or so? how do you see the opportunities in Mexico and Latam at this stage?
It's a super interesting question because there's one fact that it's important to get right out of the table. Like, developing markets are smaller markets than the US market. So in the US market, if you serve, and I'm not entirely making this up, if you have a telemedicine company for dogs, that's a huge market, just because everything in the US is huge. In Mexico, the analogous company wouldn't be serving a huge market. So in emerging markets, I think you have to focus on the really huge like problems to get to a sizable opportunity. Nubank is the perfect example of how that can be developed and how that plays out. Right. They're amazing. Another, David Velez from Nubank, is an investor in Sophia. I remember he once spoke at the office when we were like, I don't know, 20 people, and the whole company was with him, asking him questions. And he said something like, yeah, like when I was looking at starting Nubank, there was like a few sectors that were big enough. Banking was one of those. Healthcare and insurance were some of the other two big enough to be attractive. And that's on the side of the size of the pie, but also qualitatively, emerging markets are different in that, for better or worse, governments have yet a lot of work to do to provide really good solutions in these huge areas of the economy. Like, looking back at my time in the UK, they have the NHS, which is the public health service, and it's amazing. It works really well, and the British people are rightfully very proud of it. The public health service in Mexico isn't as good as the NHS, and that creates the opportunity to create something that fills that need. Like, if I was starting the same company in the UK, the bar that I would need to surpass is much higher, because the NHS is that good. So in Mexico, there's more open space because there's a lot more problems yet unsolved. In our case, is healthcare.
Right. Yes, that's a great opportunity that we are seeing in emerging markets, and also as founders, we've been working both in markets like yourself, the US and UK centric. Then moving into emerging markets, we need to, and of course it helps a lot to you that you are Mexican and you understand the context of Latam, because I think that one of the mistakes is try to copy and paste exactly the same models of the US into Latam and Southeast Asia, which I think are really the fastest growing markets nowadays, and we have been covering them a lot in the past weeks. But of course, we always need to understand how to adapt those models into the reality, and sometimes, or a lot of times, the problems are more foundational. So we can't be so sophisticated in our approach. We need to go into the basis of the problem and work on the infrastructure of the problem, being a little bit vague. But I think that's that's exactly what you said in other words, which is if people are not getting access to a doctor, why should we have the best doctor in front of them? The first problem to solve is that when they have an issue with health, they should consult a doctor and have a consultation, understand what is going on with them. If they could have the best doctor in the planet, yes, they could, but that's not the kind of problem that we are trying to solve at this stage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And in terms of this evolution, of course, you have been in pre-launch stage until the end of 2020. But as you said, there is a lot to prepare. There is a lot to do when you want to create a player like the one you have mentioned before. So how are you able to manage all these people without being on the market yet, and this kind of transition from a founding into a leadership team, and also being a little bit bigger in terms of size before being in the market? So compared to the traditional venture, right? So at seed series A, you should already have some customers, some patterns, understanding if you have your NPS, the patient outcomes, etc. Your case is a bit different, and we understand why. So how were you able to manage as a founder and CEO the different cycles of building and scaling a company, going in being in pre-launch mode and after launch?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because when you're in the market, you get the customer signal and the market signal, and that is a clear direction, or it's a clear like the world telling you how are you doing. So that's definitely something that is missing when you're in the laboratory. And for us, I think on those pre-launch months, it was crucial to focus on just the opportunity at hand, and using that as the main fuel and motivation for the team. Just keep reinforcing that the problem we're solving is huge. It's a huge pain for people. We can make a really big difference. And that in terms of motivation and morale, just like plowing through that process. In terms of more concrete feedback and how you adapt your product, because that's a big part of what you need to do when you're starting something. That was tougher, but we did a lot of user interviews and a lot of product testing before launching. I would say I would still do those, but like there's always this gap between what you can learn in an interview and a user interview as to when you launch the product and you see if people buy it and how they use it. So that's tough. I don't think there's a silver bullet there, other than launching and seeing how the market reacts.
And I was talking about the team, and as you were speaking, sorry for keep thinking as you were speaking, is even the relationship. I think that one of the tougher things of being a founder is really being able to have a relationship with ourselves and be able to face our fears, our insecurities, our questions, and also having the courage to be vulnerable with our teams. But at the same time, as you said, remembering and reminding the team and ourselves about the why is this so important, why I need to go through these painful moments and these ups and downs, because at the end of the day, I believe that in the future, this will have such an impact that it pays off for all the turbulence that I'm facing today. But at a certain time when you need to get a license for 2.5 years, and even also having the investors on trying to understand what is going on, this can be very lonely for a founder to be in that share, let's say.
No, it definitely comes with it's a mental challenge, for sure. I think on the team side, which was the first thing you mentioned, like I think just speaking sincerely and just letting the team know what's happening, and treating them like adults, and just like being honest and saying, just balancing the reality with the long-term optimism is crucial. And people like appreciate. If on the other hand, I would be like telling it's all rainbows and magic and everything is perfect, like some people would start feeling, wait, there is something off. So I think just being sincere and letting people know of the trade-offs and hardships, but also the long-term potential is key to keeping people on board.
Yeah. I think this is an important point that we have not been discussing a lot on the show in the last episodes, which is really this thing. Sometimes as CEOs, we have the temptation of trying to protect people and only share some parts of the truth, not because we don't want to be transparent, but because we want to protect people about the tough reality that we have in front of us. And I think that at the end of the day, what we always conclude is that people would prefer to know the reality, because then they can be part of solving and helping the CEO and the founders to solve that reality. Of course, this might shy away some people, but maybe they are also not the right fit to be at that stage of the company. So because I think that sometimes it's so hard to attract talent, especially in early stages, but as we see also in later stages of the company, at any stage, that we have the fear of, maybe if I share too much, and if I show that things are not so under control as they might think, maybe some of them will go away. But I think at the end of the day, that's just do the right thing, right? That's a difficult thing to trust, but just do the right thing.
Yeah, and it's 100% like a mental challenge for the leader of a company. Like I always think that if you're clear on why you still think it's a good idea to do what you're doing, it should be like the best way to communicate that is as plainly as possible. But if you are struggling to communicate it in a plain way, it might be because you yourself haven't gotten to that clarity. Right. So if you can't just explain it in the most basic and direct way, maybe it's the thinking that it's missing, or that you need to think more deeply on why it is that it is a good idea to keep doing what you're doing.
Now you have 95 people in the team. Do you have any other tips in terms of, keep building the culture, ensuring that the culture is alive, scaling teams, any other recommendation or lesson learned that you'd like to share with the community? Yes,
I think working on the culture as an explicit thing is important. We started doing that when we were around 30 people, and I think a lot. The culture really is like what people do on a day-to-day basis, but it helps to have some formal like principles and formal elements that are crystallizing those behaviors that are already happening. And I'd say it's very important to do it soon. And some people do it as the first thing they do. They build the in a company. Other people, in our case, we let it evolve a little bit and then crystallize what was happening, what we liked, and reflected on the things that were happening that we might not like, and make explicit, our culture is not that, for example. And so it's important, and it's an active job, and it changes at every stage of the company. Like when you're 10 people, culture is like how you behave in your weekly meeting with everyone in the room. When you're 50, culture is all that, or like when you have your all hands, but it's also like how you do your onboardings of new team members, right, which you're probably not doing all of them yourself as a founder, and it changes and it evolves, and it becomes I think it becomes increasingly challenging, and that's why you always need to keep investing in that.
Yeah. And that's really the growth paradox, without scaring the ones who are starting and saying, I hope that I get into post-Series A mode, that I'm much safer at that time. Yes, things get tougher and tougher as we scale.
Yes.
All the founders who are there know that, but yes, let's keep by that things will get easier a little bit at the end of time, which means that you are able to get there. So
Yeah.
and then you figure out, but you don't scare yourself, or you don't suffer in anticipation about that stage of growth. But it's good to prepare, as you said. Before going into one of the topics that typically the crowd likes to talk about, which is the fundraising, let's just cover quickly this kind of reflection about a lot of the health tech companies are much more nowadays following a tech-enabled kind of path, instead of having tech, let's say, as the main driver of innovation. So, I mean, tech is helping to improve the customer experience, to be able to be more efficient in terms of the business model, in terms of the operating model. It's not the core component. It's kind of the difference between almost a remote clinic and a kind of a health tech really company. What are your thoughts about it? Let me try to ask the question without answering.
I think it's not one or the other. In our case, at least, it's I think we see it more sequentially. First, we need to build a business that operates and that functions, and we leverage technology to do that in a better way, a more efficient way. We leverage technology to do that in a way that we start collecting data on many of the things we do. There's a later stage in which, like, for example, we're gonna have like a unique repository of data of I'm gonna throw out a crazy example, like we're gonna have all the lab results for X-rays and stuff. And one of the things that some companies do is doing AI or machine learning for automated classification of lab results and lab imagery. And that's something that we're going to be uniquely positioned to leverage because then we can build a machine learning model that helps us classify results, and then we can integrate that into the like care delivery of our users, and then it switches from becoming, it's not only tech enabled, but like that actually that machine learning model will actually drive costs down in our core business model, and at which case you might argue, oh, actually this data and machine learning innovation is the differentiation of that business. So that becomes more of a tech aspect. And so I think it's a sequential thing in our case. Like, first we start enabling our operations through technology, and later on we're gonna be doing a lot more value creation and value capture centered around technology and in particular data and machine learning.
Right. Yeah, as you said, there are so many opportunities to improve the experience of the patient. And namely, we see some health tech startups working now on being able to go to the home of the patient to collect the lab tests, instead of having the patient going into the lab and needing to be fasting and so on, maybe getting back to home, and then they need to park, and they need to go through all that trouble, and they can have a normal life if they just have someone at 8 a.m. or 7:30 coming home, taking the lab test and having breakfast and keep their lives as nothing happened, and then having just information that the lab tests are ready in the phone and send directly to the patient and to the doctor, and just having the consultation, or even a first message ahead of time just to say, look, everything is okay with your lab tests. Maybe we don't need to, if you are having trouble with your agenda, we can meet in 3 or 4 weeks, because there is nothing urgent in your lab tests. You are doing perfectly well, and what we suspected about, there is nothing there, so you can be calm and enjoy life, and
exactly.
stay in touch, right? So it's just a small experience about how tech can help, without being something that needs to be kind of science fiction in a certain way. So let's move into fundraising. So if you need to kind of condense and share a bit, what have been the lessons learned during your angel, pre-seed, seed, and A round, what would you say?
Yeah, I think the connecting theme that drove all of that investments was the size of the opportunity, and I always struggle or like cringe a bit when I say this, also because I'm talking about myself, but the team, but those are the two things that people have told us, like that's what drove the investment, clearly the size of the opportunity and the depth of the opportunity, that's crucial at any stage of investment. I would emphasize that as strongly as I can, that's gonna be probably number one on an investor's mind when assessing an opportunity. And yeah, the second point, just having a strong team around that opportunity. I think those are the two elements that probably you can replicate in several markets, and I think get you a long way throughout to get those investments.
Yeah. Something interesting here that comes to my mind is the capital available in LATAM compared to the US. It is still shorter. So which means that, as we have observed some years ago in the US, and I think that Europe is a better example on that. So Europe is much more conservative than the US in terms of investment. It is changing a bit, but still more conservative. But I would say if your ambition is too big, it might scare off some investors. And in the US, it would be exactly the opposite. If your ambition is too low, or if you are trying to de-risk your ambition already and you didn't start yet, it is a red flag, right? So in Europe, it might say, okay, good, you have here a huge opportunity, but you have the maturity to de-risk and just go to this niche and to reduce the ambition of what you are trying to solve. In the US, I think it's the opposite. Oh, you are already reducing the kind of your ambition. It doesn't make sense. We want you to go to all or nothing, right? I think that in LATAM, given the amount of capital available that is increasing a lot in the last 3 years, there is still a certain conservative approach, and the VCs in the region are also getting more and more ambitious. So what would you say about that in terms of putting your narrative and really being bold on when fundraising?
I think that goes back to my previous point about the size of the opportunity, and you like in emerging markets, you need to focus on really large problems. And I'd caution people to try to avoid falling in between, because like us, we do have a little bit we do have not a little bit, like we have investors that are really good from the region. We have Kaszek Ventures, and they're top of the game and they're amazing.
From Mercado Libre.
Exactly, and they focus a lot on the size of the opportunity when assessing things. And the rest of our investors are either American investors or international investors, Ribbit Capital and Index Ventures.
Yeah.
And for them, you don't want to fall in the middle that I was saying is if you target a small opportunity, then you might get the local investors or most local investors. And if you go for a really big opportunity, the international investors are gonna see that and appreciate that. But if you fall in between, then you're gonna be maybe too ambitious for the local investors and not big enough for the international investors. So I caution people be very mindful. And there are good businesses to be built with each strategy, but you need to be super clear about which one you're pursuing. And in our case, Nubank's case, and many other Latin companies, it's clear that they're going after the huge opportunities. We're going after the huge opportunities, and international investors appreciate that. It's actually huge. They're not handicapped by the region.
Right. Going to kind of tier one investors, and of course you need to fit their investment thesis.
Exactly.
They want to be the leader in the category and really be bold in the bets that they do, which is not the case for smaller funds, which sometimes also don't get access to those more ambitious founders in their deal flow. Awesome. And time flies, so let's go into the moments of the show where we ask a quick answer to our guests, and they give us a quick question, and they give us a short answer. So let's start. If you would have the opportunity to have a coffee with yourself at the beginning of Sophia, what advice would you offer to your younger self?
I would say be more strict about remembering that you're not necessarily your customer, and thus do sales earlier. And we didn't do sales at the beginning, and we would have benefited from starting from the get-go with that.
Awesome. What are you the most proud of on your journey so far?
I think the impact that we're starting to see on people's lives, like we have several episodes of people's outcomes, medical outcomes and health outcomes being better because our product was there and we help them navigate care episodes, and that's super rewarding.
Awesome. Worst advice ever received?
I think it's a sort of a play on the first question. I think the scratch your own itch, that can limit a lot, like the types of problems that you can solve, because there's problems that won't fit your itch, but they're very important problems, and this is a common advice about the start of folklore.
Love it. Well done. And now we go into the resources part. Favorite book?
I have it right here. It's a book called Endurance, about Shackleton's voyage to the Antarctic and how they got stuck there for 2 winters. It's just a massive or an impressive tale of what people can endure, and it's also good to keep proportions that as bad as your startup journey might be, you're not trapped in the Antarctic in winter.
Good point. I need to also have that one to read more often when I'm having a tough moment. Great one. Favorite movie or series?
I love Succession on HBO. It's an amazing show. It's so well crafted, the dialogues and characters and power dynamics between them are just like so masterfully done.
Awesome. And favorite podcasts excluding this one?
I really like the Invest Like the Best podcast. Ironically, I enjoy the episodes that are not about investing that they've done the most. They have several, but it's a really, really good podcast.
Great resources as always. Arturo, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for making the time. And you are, of course, always invited for round 2 because we had so much more to cover, but it's really impossible to make it in 50 minutes.
No, thanks a lot for the invitation, Mike. It's been my pleasure.
And to our community, we keep bringing you the best of the best to make your life a little bit easier and for you to have access to real journeys and to real advice for the ones who are there fighting their own fears and trying to make something bold that has a lot of impact. See you soon and keep scaling.